It was supposed to be a quiet morning. The kind of morning where nothing ever happens. The sun just starts to burn through the fog, and the radio plays those half-hearted traffic reports about fender benders and school zones. But sometimes, quiet mornings lie. I remember the call came in at 7:58 a.m., a silent 911. No words, no background noise. Just a faint static in what sounded like breathing. Low, uneven, too slow to be frightened, too calm to be normal. Then the line went dead. Dispatch tried to call back. A man answered, voice shaky but polite. He said, No emergency here. Must have been an accident." But when the dispatcher asked who was on the other line, he hesitated. Then he said something that didn't sit right. Probably the TV. Sometimes it dials by itself. Phones don't dial themselves. My partner, Miller, looked over from the passenger seat when the call came through. He raised an eyebrow. "Silent 911, huh? Probably some old guy sitting on his phone again." I wanted to agree, but something about the way dispatch repeated the address made my skin crawl. It was on Wycliffe Road, near the old railway tracks. That area wasn't exactly crime central, but it wasn't the kind of place that got silent calls either. We rolled up to the house around 8:15. The neighborhood was waking up, school buses crawling through intersections, kids with backpacks bigger than their torsos, mothers waving from driveways. But the house we stopped at didn't wake up with the rest. The grass was high and yellow. The curtains were drawn tight, and the front window had a film of dust thick enough to write in. A red mailbox leaned sideways, its flag stuck in the up position, probably for years. We parked in front. Miller muttered, "Place looks dead." I didn't say anything. I was too busy looking at the window. Behind the grime and reflection, for a second, I thought I saw movement. A flicker of something. Not fast, not distinct, just a shadow sliding away from the glass. Then it was gone. I knocked. The door opened after a long pause, long enough for me to consider knocking again. A man in his late 40s stood there. His face was thin, pale, but not unhealthy. His eyes, that's what struck me. Not the color, but the way they lagged behind his smile, like they were still catching up to his expression. He said, cheerful enough, "Officers, morning. What's going on?" I explained the silent 911. He chuckled. "Ah, that? Yeah, my niece must have pressed something on the phone. She's always playing around with it." "Niece?" I asked. "Yeah," he said. "She's staying with me for a while. Bit of a handful, but harmless." Miller glanced at me. His expression said, "You buy in that?" I didn't. "Would you mind if we came in?" "Just to make sure everything's okay?" I asked. He didn't hesitate. Sure. Come on in. Place is a bit of a mess, though." Inside, the air was heavy, like the house hadn't been opened in weeks. It smelled faintly metallic, mixed with something sweet and rotten, like fruit left too long in the sun. The first floor was cluttered, but not horrifying. Dishes piled up, newspapers stacked against walls. Miller cracked a joke about hoarders. I forced a laugh. The second floor was more of the same, messy, lonely, but clean in the wrong places. Beds made, mirrors spotless. A faint humming sound came from somewhere below us, rhythmic, almost electrical. When I asked about it, the man said, "Old boiler. Been making that noise for years." Then I asked the question that changed everything. "Do you mind if we check your basement?" The smile vanished. His face stiffened. His eyes darted toward the hallway, then back at me. "I'd rather you didn't," he said quietly. "It's a real mess down there. And embarrassing." I took a slow breath. "Sir, I understand, but we need to make sure everything's—" He cut me off. "There's nothing down there, I promise." His voice trembled. Not angry, not defensive, afraid. Like he was scared of the idea of someone opening that door. Miller shifted beside me, resting his hand on his belt. "Sir, we can come back with a warrant if you prefer." That's when the man exhaled sharply, almost in relief. "Yes, do that, please. But for now, I'd like you both to leave." We did. We thanked him, walked out, and got back in the squad car. Protocol said we couldn't force entry. So we planned to write up a report, get a warrant, come back. But just as I was about to start the engine, something in my peripheral vision twitched. Movement near the basement window. At first, I thought it was a plant, dry roots maybe, flapping in the morning breeze. But then I realized the air was still, no wind. And those roots weren't moving like roots. They flexed, curled, twitched. They were fingers. I froze. My mouth went dry. "Miller," I whispered, "someone's in the basement." He blinked. "What?" I pointed. By the time he looked, the fingers were gone. But I knew what I'd seen. 5 pale digits pressed against the glass, tapping, trembling. I got out of the car and walked straight to the door, knocked hard. The man's voice came from the other side, tense, shaky. "I told you to leave." "Sir," I said calmly, "we just need to verify something with our sergeant. It'll take less than a minute. You can come talk to him through our radio if you like." He hesitated. I softened my voice. "We're not here to cause trouble. If it's just a misunderstanding, we'll be gone right after." I could almost hear him thinking. Then, finally, the door opened. Just a crack. "Fine," he said, stepping out. "Let's make it quick." The second he closed the door behind him, Miller grabbed him by the wrist and twisted. He yelped. Cuffs clicked. I didn't wait. I ran inside, heading straight for the basement door. It was locked. Old wood, rusted hinges. 2 kicks, nothing. Third kick, crack. The door swung inward, releasing a gust of cold air that smelled like rust, mold, and something else. Something sickly. Rot and iron. I clicked on my flashlight. Concrete steps disappeared into pitch black. The air grew thicker with every step down. And that humming sound, the one he'd called the boiler, it wasn't mechanical. It was breathing. At the bottom, there was a single naked bulb dangling from the ceiling, swaying slightly as if someone had just brushed past it. It flickered once, twice, then died. My flashlight cut through the dark. Walls lined with metal shelves, stacks of junk, and something that looked like a padlocked closet. That's where the sound came from. Soft, muffled groans. "Police department," I called. No answer. Just that low, rhythmic breathing. I searched around for something to break the lock. Found an old pair of bolt cutters, crusted with rust. Snapped the padlock off. The door creaked open. Inside was a cage. Homemade. Bars welded unevenly. Blankets soaked in something dark. And inside the cage, a girl. She couldn't have been more than 17. Her hair clung to her face, filthy and matted. There was a mask covering the lower half of her face, leather, bolted at the back. She flinched when the light hit her, like she hadn't seen brightness in weeks. I whispered, "It's okay. You're safe now." She made a sound, not words, just broken sobs leaking through the mask. I found the latch, unhooked it, and pulled it off. Her skin beneath was raw, rubbed red from constant friction. When she spoke, her voice was hoarse and fragile. "Thank you. Thank you." Her tears left trails through the dirt on her cheeks. I asked how long she'd been down there. She didn't know. He said, "Till I was clean, till God forgave me." I helped her out, wrapping my jacket around her. As we climbed the stairs, she whispered something that made my heart stop. I wasn't the only one. I turned back. "What do you mean?" She looked at me, eyes wide with terror. "He talks to the others, through the walls." I froze on the steps. There was no one else down there. I'd checked. But the way she said it, the others, it didn't sound like people who were still alive. Behind us, from somewhere deep in the basement, the light bulb started to swing again. And then, very softly, came a sigh. It was long, low, and human. But it didn't come from the man we'd arrested. And it didn't come from the girl. It came from behind the wall. That was 3 years ago. They told me later that the girl recovered, physically at least. The man got 15 years. But sometimes, when I can't sleep, I still see those fingers at the window. I still hear that quiet, careful breathing in the dark. And I still wonder, when we took that man away, who was still down there, waiting for him to come back. They said I could take a few weeks off after the Wycliffe case. I didn't. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that basement, the cage, the fingers, that slow, deliberate breathing coming from behind the wall. The department called it residual stress. I called it something else, unfinished business. The girl, her name was Leah, had been taken to the hospital. She was weak but alive. When detectives asked her what she meant by the others, she refused to answer. All she said was, "They whisper at night, but they're not him." That phrase stuck with me. They're not him. So when the warrant finally cleared and the forensics team scheduled a follow-up sweep of the property, I signed myself onto the list. I told Miller it was for closure. But the truth was simpler. I needed to hear that basement silent again. It was a gray Thursday when we went back. The house looked smaller somehow, like it had exhaled. Crime scene tape fluttered weakly across the porch. The front door hung open, police markers everywhere inside. "Feels empty," Miller muttered. He wasn't wrong. Even the air felt thinner, like it was holding its breath. Down in the basement, the cage was gone, taken for evidence, but the smell still lingered. Metal, mold, and something almost sweet beneath it. The walls were stripped bare. That's when I saw it. A section of plaster along the far corner that looked newer than the rest. Brighter, smooth, too clean. "Hey," I called to the forensic tech. "Did anyone patch this?" He shook his head. "We haven't touched the structure." Miller ran a hand over it. "Feels hollow." That word again, hollow. It echoed in my head like a pulse. We brought down a crowbar and started peeling the plaster away. Each strike made a sound that didn't match the impact. A deep, damp thud like hitting wet wood. When the final sheet fell, a cavity gaped behind the wall, maybe 5 feet deep. And inside it were 3 chairs, old, rusted, bolted to the floor. Each had straps. Each had stains. And above each chair, carved into the brick, a name. I could only read one. Lorraine. The air in that hollow space was colder, not draft cold, dead cold. And faintly, beneath the hum of the fluorescence, I heard something. A sound so soft it could have been imagination. Breathing. That night, I dreamed about the window, the one where I'd seen Leah's fingers. Except this time, they weren't hers. When I woke up, it was 3:11 a.m. The radio on my nightstand crackled for half a second. I didn't own a police radio anymore. It was a portable one I'd kept after transferring desks. Through the static, I heard a voice whisper, "Evan, basement." I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, I went to the evidence locker. I told the clerk I needed to review items from the Wycliffe case. He shrugged, slid me the box. Inside were photographs, crime scene, cage, tools, and an audio recorder. It was from the body mic of one of the responding officers who'd come after us. When I played it, the first 2 minutes were just normal chatter. Then came the sound of movement, heavy breathing, someone muttering "Jesus Christ," then silence. And then a voice, a whisper, so faint I almost missed it. "We're still here." 2 nights later, Leah went missing from the hospital. Security footage showed her lying in bed around 1:42 a.m. Then, at 1:43, she sat up, staring directly into the corner of the room. She smiled. A small, calm, broken smile. Then she stood, walked barefoot down the hall, and out the emergency exit. No one saw where she went. I went back to Wycliffe Road the next morning. Alone. The sun hadn't come up yet. The sky was that strange deep blue right before dawn. The house was locked up tight. No guards posted anymore. I slipped under the tape, flashlight in hand. Inside, it was colder than I remembered. The smell was still there, but now it carried something wet, like mildew and soil. I went straight to the basement. The hole we'd opened was still exposed, the chairs still there, but the names, there were more now. 5. Written in uneven, trembling script, as if someone had added them with bare fingers. One of them read, Leah. That's when I heard it again. Breathing, only louder this time. Closer. I swung my light across the walls. No one there. But when I aimed it at the floor, I saw footprints, small, bare, fresh, leading from the opening in the wall to the foot of the stairs. And wet, I followed them up, heart pounding. Each step creaked like it was resisting me. When I reached the first floor, the footprints ended in front of the kitchen doorway. And hanging there, in the air thick with rot, was the faintest smell of hospital antiseptic. I heard something move upstairs. A door opening. Then a single slow step. Another. And another. I called out, Leah? Silence. Then, in the same soft, rasping tone I remembered from that morning, a voice answered. He said I could go home. I froze. The sound came from the top of the stairs. The flashlight flickered once, twice, and then steadied. A shadow stood there, small, thin, barefoot. Leah? I whispered again. She tilted her head slightly. Even in the dim light, I saw the raw skin around her mouth newly red, as if something had been torn off. She smiled. You shouldn't have opened the wall. Before I could speak, the bulb above me burst glass raining down. The sound echoed through the entire house like a scream. When the light came back, the stairs were empty. Backup arrived 40 minutes later. They found me outside, sitting on the curb, flashlight in one hand, badge in the other. Inside, the house was untouched. No footprints, no new names on the wall, and no sign of Leah. They closed the case a month later, filed it under psychological contamination due to trauma exposure. I transferred divisions after that, moved to a different city, different partner. But sometimes when the night gets too quiet, I swear I hear that same low hum, like something breathing inside my walls. And in my dreams, I keep finding new names written in the dark. The last one I saw wasn't hers. It was mine. A week after Leah vanished, the case file landed back on my desk. I wasn't supposed to touch it, but someone had slipped a note inside the folder. It just said, "Play the tape again." The tape was the original 911 recording, the silent call. We'd all listened to it that first day. Nothing but a faint hiss, maybe breathing, and then the line going dead. But I remembered what the forensic tech said before, sealing the evidence. The waveform's odd, like there's more than one voice overlapping. That sentence had stayed with me. I borrowed the recorder that night and played it in my car. The first few seconds were just static. Then the same slow, drawn-out breath. Male. Calm. Then another sound buried under it. Smaller, faster, like a heartbeat or whisper. I turned up the volume. The voice beneath wasn't breathing. It was mimicking it. Almost matching the rhythm, but off by half a beat, like an echo trying to keep up. Then it spoke. Faint. Crooked, like words were bending. Evan. I turned the volume down fast, my hand shaking. I replayed that section 5 times. Same thing. My name, stretched out like something trying to pronounce it through water. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe it? Instead, I brought the file home. I thought maybe if I studied it, I could explain it. Interference, cross-channel bleed, anything logical. But at 2 a.m, while the recorder sat on my desk, it switched on by itself. The red light blinked. Then the same static hiss filled the room. I stood there, listening. The air grew colder. I swear the shadows along the wall began to move, shifting slightly, as if something were walking behind them. The voice came again. You shouldn't have opened the wall. It was Leah's voice. Or what was left of it. I pulled the batteries out, threw the recorder into my bag, and drove straight to the precinct. The building was empty except for the night officer at the front desk. I went to the evidence room and slammed the tape back into storage. But as I turned to leave, I noticed something new on the shelf label. Where the tag used to read Wycliffe Case, Audiophile 911, and now said the house that breathed. No one would have renamed that. When I got back to my car, there was condensation on the inside of the windshield, like someone had been sitting there, breathing while I was gone. I wiped it with my sleeve, and words appeared in the fog. Still here. The next morning, Miller called me. He sounded tired, his voice strained. Evan, I don't know if you've been dreaming about that place, but I just got a call. Dispatch says they got another silent 911. I felt my stomach drop. From where? Wycliffe Road. He paused. But that house was demolished last night. I didn't answer. I could hear faint static on his end, the same kind that came from the tape. And under it, I swore I heard someone breathing. Slow. Careful. Too calm to be scared. Then Miller whispered, Evan, it's saying your name. The line went dead. That was 2 days ago. No one's seen Miller since. They'll probably find his car somewhere near the old tracks, the engine cold, the radio still hissing. I keep telling myself I'll hand over my badge, move far away, start fresh. But every time I close my eyes, I hear that low breath in the dark and the faint click of a phone dialing a number I know too well. Mine. They said Miller probably just needed space. Officers break sometimes, long nights, worse memories. But I knew he wasn't coming back. Because the morning after his call, I woke up to my own phone ringing. Unknown number, no caller ID. Just a faint hiss when I picked up. I didn't say anything. Neither did whatever, was on the other end. Then, after a few seconds, I heard it. A single tap, like a fingernail against glass. Another, then 2 more, rhythmic, slow. Exactly like the sound I'd heard that morning outside the Wycliffe basement window. I hung up, but the call didn't end. The timer kept running, seconds ticking upward. My screen dimmed, but the line stayed open. I tried powering the phone off, pulling the battery. Nothing. It just kept breathing. That night, I dreamed of Miller. He was standing at the bottom of the same basement steps, flashlight shaking in his hand. He looked up at me and mouthed something I couldn't hear. His throat was too dark, like his voice had been taken. Then he lifted his hand and pointed behind me. When I turned around, there was a wall, just concrete, cracked and wet. Except the cracks were opening, stretching wider, and something pale was pressing through. I woke up gasping. The phone on the nightstand was still on. Call time, 7 hours, 19 minutes. And from the speaker, very faintly, a voice whispered, "Answer me." I dropped it and backed away. The screen went black. At sunrise, I drove to the communications division. Told them my phone might have been compromised, interference, a trace from an old case. The tech guy plugged it in, frowned, and said, "That's weird. There's no number history at all. It's like the call never existed." I wanted to believe him. I almost did, until he turned the phone over and frowned again. "You sure you didn't mark this yourself?" Etched into the plastic, right beneath the battery slot, were 2 words. stay connected. That night, I disconnected everything: phone, radio, even the old landline I never used. I slept with the lights on. For a few hours, it worked. The apartment was silent, too silent. Then, just before 3 a.m., the television flickered on by itself. The screen was static, gray, hissing, pulsing like a heartbeat. Then it cleared. For a moment, I thought it was showing the old Wycliffe house. The same peeling wallpaper, the same basement steps. But the image began to move, slowly, as if someone or something was walking down the stairs holding a camera. The picture shuddered, focusing on the floor, on 3 chairs. And in the center one, strapped down, head tilted to the side, was Miller. His eyes were open. His mouth wasn't. Then, as the camera panned up, I saw the wall behind him. There were more names scratched into it now. The last one wasn't Leah or Lorraine. It was Evan. The TV went black. For a long time, I didn't move. I couldn't. The only sound was the low hum of the refrigerator, until I realized it wasn't the fridge at all. It was coming from the hallway, breathing. Slow, calm, too close. When I finally looked, the hallway was empty. But on the wall beside my door, someone had drawn 5 small handprints in dust. They led from the floor up toward the ceiling, like something had climbed inside the walls. And just before the lights flickered out, my phone, the one I'd turned off, sealed in a drawer, began to ring again. Same number. No ID. Only the sound of someone waiting, patiently, to be answered. It's been 3 nights since the TV turned on. I haven't slept, haven't eaten. I just sit here listening. Because I know it's still on the line. I can feel it. Every time the wind moves through the vents, it sounds like breath. Every flicker in the light feels like someone trying to speak through the air itself. I've started keeping a gun on the table, even though I'm not sure what good it'll do. I'm writing this down because I want someone, anyone, to understand what happened. If you're hearing this, it means the call reached you too. The first sign came yesterday morning. I'd unplugged everything in my apartment, but when I walked into the kitchen, the old rotary phone, the one I hadn't used in years, was off the hook, the cord swinging slowly. The dial tone was faint, wet, breathing, then a click, and the same voice I'd heard in the tape, low and distorted, said, "You opened the line, Evan. Now you can't hang up." I dropped the receiver, but it didn't matter. I could still hear it, through the walls, through the pipes, through the air itself. I packed what I could and drove. Nowhere in particular, just away. Out of the city, down empty highways until I hit the edge of nowhere. But the further I went, the louder it got. Sometimes it sounded like Miller, sometimes Leah, and sometimes it was me. At dusk, I stopped at a gas station outside of town. The clerk recognized me, said he used to live near Wycliffe Road. "Heard they're rebuilding there," he said casually. "Nice new houses going up." I didn't answer. When I looked back at the pump, I saw something through the reflection on my car window. A shape behind me. Tall. Still, its outline blurry, like heat on asphalt. And the glass fogged from the inside, forming 3 words. "Come home, Evan." I drove through the night. At some point, the radio in the car came to life on its own. No station, just static. Then that faint rhythmic tapping again. Tap, tap, tap. And then, my own voice whispering back at me through the static. I never left. The car's headlights flickered. I slammed the brakes. The road ahead was gone, replaced by a house. That house. The Wycliffe place, rebuilt, but still wrong. The windows glowing faintly from inside, like something breathing behind them. The front door was open. I don't remember getting out, but I was standing in the yard, mud cold under my boots. I heard the wind moving through the house like a sigh. Each step I took closer made the air heavier, harder to breathe. Inside, everything was clean, too clean. Fresh paint, polished floors, but the walls were whispering. I could hear Miller's voice saying my name, Leah's sobs, and behind them all, the man's calm, steady tone, the one who had opened the door that morning and smiled too late. Then I realized none of them were voices. They were the house. It was breathing through the walls, exhaling in words. You were supposed to leave it closed. The floorboards shifted beneath me. Dust poured from the ceiling like ash. I turned toward the stairs to the basement. The door was gone, sealed behind a perfect layer of smooth plaster. But as I stepped closer, cracks began to appear, pulsing like veins. And from the other side came a sound I'll never forget, a phone ringing. Old, mechanical, echoing through concrete. I should have run, but the sound drew me in like gravity. The cracks widened. A chunk of plaster fell away, revealing the dark stairwell beneath. The ringing grew louder, slower, and with each chime, I felt the air being pulled from my lungs. At the bottom of the stairs, in the black, I saw the faint red glow of a phone receiver hanging in midair. It was mine. I picked it up. Static filled my ears, then quiet. Then a whisper, soft and close enough that I felt it against my skin. Welcome back. The line clicked, and for the first time since that morning years ago, I realized the house hadn't just been breathing. It had been waiting. Now the air around me hums with it, that low, steady sound that fills every space between thoughts. The line never ends. If you hear breathing when you pick up the phone, don't answer. It's not trying to reach you. It's trying to come through you. If you made it this far, thank you for staying with me till the end. If you felt that shiver down your spine, or maybe heard a breath that wasn't yours, then don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories that will keep you up at night. Turn on the notification bell so you'll know the moment the next call comes through. Until then, keep your lights on. And whatever you do, don't answer the phone